Smart. Thank you for that. Help me understand how you arrived at the conclusion that we don't want groups and only individuals. Help me understand that.
Sure. I don't have a problem with that. We asked for meetings. The DCA asked for meetings with you all, and Taiwan said, we're not going to do that. We want individual meetings.
No, that's I was on that email. So what the email said is we're encouraging people to participate in the process that we've outlined right now. Let's be honest, there's only like a few of us. Our team is really, really small. And so what we're trying to do is how can we still provide engagement opportunity for everyone in the city in this short amount of time? And this is not a timeline that we established. This is a timeline.
This amount of time has been shortened.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. Could you not raise your voice at
Sure.
anyone on this call? Please. I think we have been more than respectful, responsive, and have listened to everyone. Everyone.
If this process is the best way to do it, how come so few people, in your opinion, have participated?
So how are you defining few people?
Well, I define this group here as few. I define it as few when I was on the first meeting where maybe there was 20 people total.
Okay.
And I'm saying that if this is, and I'm not against this process at all, I am also, like Mark, think that organizations that do represent communities should also be heard and be able to sit down, with planning. So I think that Ty made clear that wasn't what he wanted. Now I'm saying, do you think that we have that you've had a large number of people participating?
So we have had, and we can share the numbers with y'all, our participation numbers. And this isn't the only I'm sorry, I'm talking. This is not the only platform that we have. We've had one-on-one meetings prior to this. We've had a survey. There's an online application that people are participating in. We've had 32 of these meetings that we're in now. And next week we'll have in-person office hours where anyone or any group of people can participate in person with a staff person to have their individual questions answered. So if you have any other suggestions as to how we might engage the 300 plus square mile of people that live in this community in a more efficient way, I am open to those ideas. But we have online, in-person, individual comments. You can handwrite, send in an email, make a phone call. There are so many ways to engage. But do remember that we have to engage everyone in the community and provide that opportunity equally within the time frame of the schedule and timeline that has been established by Charlotte City Council.
And Alicia, if I could just add one last thing as well. This isn't the last opportunity for engagement. There'll be another phase after this phase is concluded for further engagement as well. And as Alicia was saying, yeah, go ahead.
I would be interested in knowing how many people have participated in this phase once, you get to that point.
Do you have those numbers somewhere in the slides or?
Not in the slide, but we can certainly get those.
Send a briefing book if you can after this that has all it in there. It's fine.
We'll do. And just remember, this phase isn't over yet, so those numbers may increase by the end of this phase.
Alicia, this is John Friday. I think some of the frustration is that we think it would help you and the city and everyone if a lot of people participated. And we tried to get our neighborhood to participate by going on the map. And we had a presentation, a Zoom call, and tried to get word out, and it's on our website and stuff like that. But we know that you're probably not getting, even a moderate percentage of people in Charlotte because they just don't pay attention to this stuff. But it would help you, it would help the process if we could do it. So if there's anything we can do that we're not already doing, let us know. But so going to that, let me ask a quick question. I went through I can't think what it was called, the key steps. The community letter said to go to a certain part of the place types and it would tell us how we're going to roll this out. And I read that, and it talks a lot about maps, and I am really confused as to where we are in that process. Could you sort of walk us through how that works, if that's not too Whitefield? I think it said something like the staff is going to create a map based on the data points, and we're going to talk about it. And eventually there will be an amendment to the plan to adopt a map. Is that this map after one more iteration or two, or can you just sort of tell us how that works?
Yeah, if I can go to that slide in the presentation, I'm going to just stop sharing my screen.
Thank you.
Hang on one second. Let me just get there. I don't want to make you guys dizzy.
Because the word map never says which map exactly.
Sure. Just give me one
I'm
second.
really confused.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hey Gretchen, just so you know, when we have a second, there is some stuff in the chat. We've got,
Yep.
just wanted to
Okay.
let you know.
Thank you. I did see that. Let me get through this question first, and then we can make sure that John's question is answered, and then go to the chat if that's okay. So if you can see my screen, this is the steps that we were talking about when John, when you were asking the 3 steps of the map portion. So the first map that was created was an existing development map, and that mapped everything that's on the ground. And the inputs that went into that were existing land use and then the forms of development. And that map was just for reference only, so we can establish a baseline. The second step was to map the adopted policies. And that map, when we say adopted policies, those are the area plans that have been adopted since 2010. And the input for that was the future land use, zoning, when there was no indication of land use, and then market support for that map. The third map, which is the draft that we're looking at now, that was when we drafted or translated the policies in the 2040 comprehensive plan. That's the draft that you're looking at now. And the inputs to that were the equitable growth framework, the plan policy, the actual plan policies in the 2040 plan, and then any survey responses that we received. And then we checked that against our future projections just to make sure that what we were mapping made sense. Any infrastructure and environmental capacities or restrictions that we had. And then we checked it against any market feasibility. So those are the 3 steps that you were alluding to that may have gotten a little bit confusing. But we are now at the point where we have a draft of the 2040 policy map. And that's what we're requesting your input on right now. And that map is the map that's on the online comment application. It's just a draft at this point. And so the goal of that is to have conversations like this to make sure that what's mapped, that we got it right, or if we got it wrong, how does that need to change? And generally speaking, any changes that would happen would have to be sort of at a citywide level. So we would have to think of a methodology if there is an issue with the way that the map, certain areas of the map got the place types that were allocated. We would have to look at it on a citywide level and make a recommendation that would make sense at a citywide level, unless it was an error. And then at that point, we would look at whether or not it was an error on our part or not. I hope that makes sense.
Can I?
It does. The only problem I have with that is it sounds like a computer system that goes in and tells us what we are, as opposed to Charlotte figuring out what it is. For instance, if East Boulevard is our neighborhood center and has a form that is developed organically to be Dilworth, why would it have to then be a form that is foreign to Charlotte and to Dilworth to still be the use it is today? And I know we're putting input into this, but what I sort of just heard is if East Boulevard is purple and NODA is purple, those purples need to be the same thing as neighborhood center, and they may in fact not be the same thing for Charlotte. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, yes. And from a guidance perspective, you're right that that guidance does not change from one place type to another. The place type is what it is. But
So John, help me understand how that's different from a PED land use perspective. How that's different than how we apply PED or the yellow for residential, the green for parks. How is that different? What the land use tool that we have today and how we use it, how is that different than what we're proposing here?
Well,
and from your perspective in terms of changes.
Sis wants to say something, so let's let her speak.
It's almost like a one size fits all. And I don't think one size can fit all in Charlotte. Because I think Dilworth is different from NODA, is different from Myers Park, is different from Sedgefield, is different from wherever. And the one size fits all. And when I think about the time that I didn't live in Dilworth at the time, I lived in Myers Park, but the time that was put in on the PED of Dilworth and what the plan that went in, the planning and the effort that went into that. And it wasn't necessarily for every neighborhood, correct?
And we'll get to that, Ms. Kaplan. I'm not saying that we're not getting to that point where we will have specific area plans. What I'm saying, what we are now as a community and what was the guidance that council adopted is that we need more modern tools in our toolbox, because we do know that a lot of those tools, the land use tools for sure, which is why we have so many rezonings, they aren't up to date, and they're not providing the proper guidance that council needs to make decisions. This does not end our efforts to plan for Charlotte. This updates what we have now. We'll continue to plan and layer on that specificity, but we can't modernize our tools if we don't start someplace. This is the foundation to do that, and then we'll get more specific as time moves on and have more specific plans for geographies. Because what we do know is what we're doing now doesn't work in terms of land use and zoning. The tools are not talking to each other. They don't speak to each other. At least in this conversation, whether it's broken or not, we're at least saying the two tools talk to each other. That's a start, and that's the start we're trying to get to. Is it perfect? No. Are we going to try to fix it? Yes. And that's the conversation we're having. So I'm not saying that the neighborhood center that we have identified for Dilworth today will always look just like this from a land use perspective. The tool will look the same, but there may be other layers that makes it more specific to this area.
Well,
That's what we've always done, but we're doing it a different way to modernize the tool. But I'm trying to get John, maybe John can help me understand how what we have today from, let's just use residential. How is that color on the map shown differently than another residential neighborhood? How does that interpretation looks different across the city? Because it's yellow, if it's residential, it's residential. So how does that look different in other parts of the city? Help me understand.
I would say that part probably does not, because the UDO deals with lot sizes as the way to get to zoning.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
so what's not happening with an example neighborhood center is we don't have the differentiation. Let's say a new neighborhood, you were doing something near Highland Creek,
Mm-hmm.
where there probably isn't a neighborhood center that I can think of, right? There's
They
so
have
many.
one. They have one. They have one.
And you want to create one because the policy map says it's more than 10 minutes, it's too far. Then that's almost like a greenfield being developed versus where we already have neighborhood centers, like Myers Park Neighborhood Center on Providence Road and so forth. The UDO also makes a lot of those buildings non-conforming. And so I think it's a UDO to place types, and you're talking about land use, but the land use is described in the UDO, and because they're happening concurrently, my fear is which one do you adopt that then changes the intent of the other?
So what I hear is that, because here's what the place type does. It talks about the land uses that are allowed, like land use
Right.
designation always has.
Right.
It takes it a step further in even defining the building character and form. It doesn't get into specificity about square footages and heights and all of that, right? Check. So we're checked twice, right? Talks about mobility, the type of transportation facilities to accommodate that land use character and form, right? That's place type. Check. Talks about the type of open space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Check. Then it talks about other amenities and tree save, mold split, all that stuff. Check. So what I hear is that it was not translating, or was getting lost in translation, is the specificity that's in the UDO. What is the issue with the UDO in terms of neighborhood center?
Minimum height of 24 feet.
Okay, what else?
Interestingly,
What is it today? What is it today? Is it 40?
There's no minimum height.
Okay.
It's a minimum height.
Okay.
Probably the setbacks are changing, but you'd have to go block by block to figure that out, because we have a adopted streetscape.
Okay.
And
so
UDO,
is it more aggressive or less aggressive?
That I don't know. It would have to be a item by item. I would say that the minimum height is the number one, which Laura knows is the number one biggest issue with the existing neighborhood centers of Dilworth, Myers Park, maybe not Noda, but probably Wesley Heights, Wilmore. We have so many buildings that aren't 24 feet tall.
The minimum height for which district?
For neighborhood center.
Because not all of them have neighborhood centers. So we're talking about, is there more than one neighborhood center district?
What?
You mean in the UDO?
Yes.
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, so the minimum height, what else? Setbacks, what else you got?
That's probably about it. I mean, I think the other stuff is all PED related, good streetscape design that you guys have pushed for years.
Okay, because the streets map sets the center line and talks about the types of streets and all that stuff in certain areas. So you're okay with the streets map in terms of designations, all that?
what I saw looked fine to
Okay,
me.
so it's height, setback, that's it. What would you suggest?
What?
That the
What is your
UDO,
suggestion?
my suggestion would be that the UDO team work with you guys to see where neighborhoods are making comments that the UDO, if the neighborhood's aware of it, that the UDO is not meeting what we think our needs are, because neighborhood center is the correct designation from everything in the policy. The 2040 comp plan description of a neighborhood center is East Boulevard.
Okay,
It's
So-
the UDO translation
right. So,
that
so John, I hate to cut you off. I'm trying to get to a number, if you have a suggested number for the height that you're comfortable with. Because we're going to share the recording, the notes, and have a conversation with the UDO team about this. We meet, I can't even imagine how many times a week. But I want to have a number to give them. So when there's a discussion, they have something to feed back on. Not, we just don't like it, but we're comfortable with X.
So I guess my first question is, why is there a minimum height? Because no building is going to be a foot tall. It's going to have some height. A maximum height, I understand, and a setback relation to the street, I understand. It was the minimum height, unless it is a green field or it's an infill. It just seems, and I've told Laura this, when you look at that, and all 80% of the buildings don't meet your minimum height standard. Is that really describing what we want?
Right. Okay.
So
That's fair. That's fair. And I know, and I want Ms. Kaplan and others to understand that we know how complex this is, and that at any opportunity to speak on your issues, you want to maximize it. Whether it's UDO, policy map, I get it. I just want us to make sure we're clearly documenting what the issues are so we can address them properly.
I agree.
So what I
I agree.
hear today is that, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, it's not so much as the place type itself for neighborhood center, because it meets the goals. Check. It's the translation to the UDO, specifically the setback and the height. Why and what and how we get to be more contextual in this application. Greenfield versus infield or whatever, however that works. Is that accurate? That's because I want us to get to a point where we're responding and you start to see these responses in the actual work.
For me, that is an excellent response. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the team's got all of this.
Yes, we do. I got the notes.
I just want to make sure it's clear, because I know this is like our third, fourth conversation
Yeah.
with y'all, and I don't want you to think that we're not listening. We're just trying to figure out what goes where and how do we make sure the responses or the comments are being communicated properly to the right people to respond. Because at the end of the day, we all work for the city and we all work for planning. So we own it all.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Alicia, for that, and thank you,
You're
John,
welcome.
for the conversation. I think it's helped put into context what the real issues are and what we can relate to the UDO team. If we can go to Mary's question, because she has been waiting for a while. So Mary's question in the chat is, with major traffic issues we have in the Charlotte area communities, why are two-lane traffic roads, I'm assuming, being made into one lane traffic as, for example, bicycle lanes? Mary, can you come off of mute and maybe explain a little bit what the question means? And I think I know where to direct you to get the answer for specific questions like this. But if you can I just want to make sure that we're understanding your question before providing an answer.
Yes, I've noticed quite a few lanes here in Charlotte, and particularly in the, when there's peak hours in particular, they have been changed from maybe being 2 lanes of traffic into one lane of traffic with a bike lane. And to me, that just doesn't make sense because we don't use the bike lanes to the capacity that we use the other lanes, like as far as going to work, you know, 6, 8, 7 days a week. And bike lanes are on the weekend or when you have some type of marathon or bikeathon or whatever.
Sure.
To me, it just doesn't make sense because it messes up the traffic that's already hideous as it is.
Yeah. Do you have a specific road in mind that we could maybe leave a comment for the streets map team? Because I believe that's
I'm just
some of the.
I know there's some roads over in North Charlotte that are pretty near downtown and even in the Minnesota area. I think Remont Road a long time ago was turned into that, and it leads into the expressway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Can you see my map?
No.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm just going to share my screen. All right, you should be able to see that. Sorry about that.
Whoops.
You should be able to see that now.
Yes.
Okay, so Remont Road,
Yes. And I just can't think. I was over in North Charlotte, and I know it just recently happened, and it might have been part of Park Road, somewhere along in there. Park, what is that called? Park. Where is a neighborhood center on that street? I can't even think of the name of it.
Is it towards, so let's go to Park Road.
Towards the plaza. From, say, Davison Street.
It's going to be up here.
What's that called? It's Park something way.
At Parkwood, I think it's Parkwood.
That's it. Parkwood.
Yeah, it's by Central. Like if you go towards east, yeah, like up above Independence, and
oh, Parkwood.
Yeah,
Parkwood Ave. Okay. So I know we have someone from CDOT on the call. I don't know if maybe Julian, you would want to provide some input here, but we can certainly take the reason why I have the application open is so that if there's anything that we can't answer directly tonight, we can provide the comment on the streets map, and that's the goal of the application is to collect comments like this and hopefully be able to provide a comprehensive explanation as to why certain things are happening.
Well, I'm not. This is my home, and I'm 70-something years old, and so I have seen it grow. You know, and I'm part of the old neighborhood that no longer exists, and I'm not familiar with everything that's going on. But I know I live here. I've raised my family here, and I see a lot of changes. And it looked like the changes are coming to the newer and the bigger versus some of the existing communities where the economics might be different, you know, and I just don't like that. Just don't like that.
So if I can say one thing, the goal of the comprehensive plan, one, it was to acknowledge that there have been areas of the city that have been historically disenfranchised. Yes. And with acknowledging the growth that is happening in Charlotte, the goal of the comprehensive plan is to be more equitable in the way that resources are distributed in the future, and to make sure that the growth is happening where it needs to and how it needs to. So I understand your concern about the growth that you see and it going to certain areas that have perhaps, you know, or areas that have historically been disenfranchised. You're concerned about that. Yes. And we heard that in the comprehensive plan process, and that was something that was incorporated into the policies. So we understand your concern. We hear that.
Thank you.
Would you like to, is your comment about Parkwood Ave something that you would like to capture, or you would like us to capture in the application, or was it just a general comment?
Really speaking in general, you know.
Okay.
I was really kind of taken aback a bit because I'm from the neighborhood that used to be Brooklyn. All of downtown now, you know. And you know, I looked at that little park. I think they completely demolished it. It was a little park there, Pearl Street Park, and I think they're calling it Pearl Park, or I don't know what they're doing to it, but they're completely demolishing it and everything. And it's not that I'm opposed to growth.
Mhm.
Just like when they had the urban renewal, many of us call it urban removal, was what it was. So those are my issues about, if you don't make the dollar bills, you seem to get trunked over around here. And I know Charlotte's no different from other cities, but still, somebody needs to say something. And I'm just going to put it plain. That's the way I feel. I just don't feel
Okay.
like all of the neighborhoods are getting all of the resources, particularly when they're the newer neighborhoods. We just
Well,
don't get it.
yeah. Thank you for that, Mary.
Sure.
Are there any other areas of the map that, or any other questions? Yes, Mark. Go ahead.
It's spoken about a parcel that was designated as N2 that is on Scott Avenue that abuts to East Boulevard. And this is a series of 6 or 7 houses that are single family. They have been single family for many years. As a matter of fact, some of these lots are less than, they're 0.08 of an acre. They currently are zoned R22. That makes it one, they can't comply to an R22 zoning as it is if any developer wanted to come in. So the comment has been that this had been requested to be an N1 that backs up to an N1, but is still shown as an N2. And previously the comment was, well, perhaps we need more land use data. And if that's the case, who would be gathering that? How would we be gathering it? Who do you need that information from? Because it's obvious that as an N2 development, all that would do is increase the potential for the market pressure to change N1 that butts up to it to be N2 in order to make any kind of development meet that. And that's not the only example in the neighborhood, but
Yeah,
I'm picking on
so
this one spot.
yeah, and thank you for that question. You know, that may be again, one of the citywide issues that we would have to look at and provide some recommendations and have city council be the ones to make the decision on whether or not, you know, if a parcel is zoned a particular way and the reason why the place type got assigned the way that it did is because of the underlying zoning. I think the conversation then becomes, you know, with it being zoned a particular way, and if it got, if the place type got changed to an N1, for example, is that then taking away entitlement rights for that particular parcel? And so I think that, yeah, go ahead.
I can appreciate your position. Nobody would want to lose something other than the fact that they never could comply to what was currently there anyway.
Understood. However, I think that you may be looking at it on a parcel by parcel basis, and place types looks at half blocks, between a half block and a block range. And so
and I do appreciate what you're saying. It was my understanding that some of the criteria that you set was a 5 consecutive single family residence could help designate what it should be or what it currently is being used at. And so to take that and look at some of these areas and then say, you know, we're going to discount that, or I'm a little confused, or do we go with that, or do we not go with that, or can you see the confusion?
I understand your position. If I can, Alicia, I don't know if you want to jump in.
Yeah, this is one of the comments we received early on in the process, and one of the things we're looking at the methodology incorporating building type. that's the additional data that he's referring to, where we said we would look at for these adjacencies, and we can go around this whole area, and there are blue comments because of issues with adjacencies, transitioning from a more intense place type to the single family neighborhood. And so we have that note, and we're going to look at that and make that revision in the methodology to correct it across the city as well as in this area. So that's what the data point or the layer of information we're going to add to make sure we refine the transitions.
Alicia, I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Alicia.
No problem.
Yes, Ms. Kaplan.
John can probably speak to this more accurately than I can. But some of the property on East Boulevard that is commercial now, you know, up and down East Boulevard, the restaurant, etc. I understand, and I may be misinformed, there's the possibility that in addition to the height that was non-conforming, that their relationship to other property and to residential would be changing dramatically and not allowing development unless you were to be able to put together more than 1, 2, up to 3 of those lots, which encourages then development by developers as opposed to encouraging development by individual homeowners, or excuse me, landowners and business owners in that area.
Since you
go ahead.
made this, what we were trying to figure out, Gretchen, is really a UDO question, and that is how
That's what it sounds like.
how the PED allowed the redevelopment or the reuse of small buildings on East Boulevard. And then the new UDO appears to have more in the way of side yard requirements and so forth. And frankly, as a committee, we just haven't gotten that deep into those comments yet. But I think they're UDO related.
Yeah, and I was going to ask for clarification on that as well. Okay.
Yes. And I would like to comment to Mary, who was concerned about the traffic, if she's still on the call. If you remember East Boulevard years ago, which was a four-lane road, 2 in each section and very wide, and you ran across it and feared for your life. CDOT came in and did computer modeling, which I'm sure they probably did on Parkwood before I drove down Parkwood today, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And they basically looked at how traffic flows, particularly at peak hours. And they convinced our neighborhood that it might add 1 to 2 minutes to get the length of East Boulevard. But look what it did in the way of people being able to cross with buggies with babies and all that sort of stuff. And we bought into it. And I will tell you, all these years later, it's working beautifully. And so I think Parkwood, as much as it looks like, what in the world have they done? I expect cars did not go down that street side by side. And so it backs up at certain peak hours, maybe a little more than it did. But they really do run, and I'm speaking for CDOT, but they really do run a lot of computer modeling about how cars actually flow. And I think if you live with it, you'll find it's probably okay. And if not, I expect CDOT will fix it.
Okay.
John, you
Yes.
remember when they first did the conversion? How everyone was like, "Oh my God, this is awful," because it took when they first
It came
did the
after
conversion.
the DCA as though we went out there with paint buckets and did it ourselves.
Yeah, because it took a little bit longer to get where you wanted to go, but people adjusted over time. But when it first happened, the phone was blowing up because I was at CDOT when it first happened.
But the people who complained, most were not people who were Dilworth connected. The people.
Right,
who
they
complained were
traveled
the
through
ones-
East Boulevard, yes.
Exactly. They wanted to use East Boulevard as a runway to
As a cut
go
through.
like a bat out of you know what. And
Right.
so those were the complainers.
But yes, Alicia, they came to every meeting for months and complained bitterly. And I think I was president when that was done.
Yep, I remember.
You were,
Kathy
John.
does too.
I think I was president and made a statement in front of city council to Pat McCrory, who
Yep.
brought that up, that we
Yep.
bought it hook, line, and sinker, and we thought it was going to be great. So,
And it is.
and we're hoping that
It-
comp plan and the UDO are just as great. Believe me, we're only doing this because we want it to be that vision that
Sure.
we don't have to argue about anymore.
Yeah, we understand. And I think from a city staff perspective, we also want to get there. It's just we have to have these hard
Of course.
conversations
Right.
now and
Right.
into the future to be able to get there. So we certainly appreciate, your participation and your willingness to get the word out to have people participate as well. The rest
Thank
of your.
Guys, for the work you're doing on it. And unfortunately, I've got to run.
Okay,
Thank
well, we're down to the last 5 minutes. So if there's any last burning questions that you guys want to ask or cover, we have 5 minutes.
I just got to pitch in and tell you all how much I really appreciate everything you're doing. And I know it's not a critique or anything, but it's a hard job. We realize it, and we appreciate your patience through all this.
Well, thank you, Mark, for saying that. I feel like I hit the jackpot when I was able to join this team less than a year ago. So everyone on it does great work, and everyone really cares about what we do. And that's probably why it gets passionate sometimes, but we really appreciate your participation and your input.
Oh, I've got to ask a question. I just got to
Yes.
ask, is it anything, this is Mary, by the way,
Yeah, hi, Mary.
to get some type of a sign up for my neighborhood to recognize that this is Yorkwood?
Go ahead, Alicia.
Yeah, I was thinking you could possibly, do we have her email?
Yeah.
Okay, we could send you a contact in Housing and Neighborhood Services. They
Okay,
have a matching grant program. You can get signs throughout your entire neighborhood that can help, help you with that effort. Nicole Story runs that whole team. But I'm sure they have a neighborhood liaison for your area.
okay.
But we'll make sure you get that contact so you can reach out and see if you can get some money to do that.
Thank
I'll
you.
send that out right after this meeting.
Yep.
So Gretchen, I have one more question. This is still back
Yes.
to process, and I'm still
Sure.
confused.
Okay, go ahead.
So I found the.
You
I
don't
know.
get to be confused.
Please,
It's just not even right.
What else is new? So
Go ahead,
in
Sean.
in the place type mapping process, it says that step number 7 says you're going to review, revise, and refine a future place type map generated from the starting data created by staff. Is that this map?
This is the first draft of the 2040 policy map. Yes.
Okay. Then it says the last step is adopt the future place types map as an amendment to the comprehensive plan. So we're talking about this map. Once you adjust all the colors to where you and everyone else thinks it ought to be, that will go to council for adoption
Correct.
to become the policy map.
That's correct. And for clarification, so the 2040 plan is the policy. So that's the text of it. And then the 2040 policy map is the companion to that. So that's this map that you are looking at, the final version, whatever final version of that we come to. Yes.
Okay. And then the regulations of the UDO.
The regulations of the UDO.
So then we do a community area plan process.
So Alicia, help me with this one. It's the community area plan, and then eventually I believe the zoning map will probably will need some adjustment, if I'm not mistaken, but yes.
So you're right, John. It's the policy map, the UDO. Gretchen, you're right about the community area planning comes next. All through that, once the UDO is adopted, they'll be going through the zoning mapping process. It comes in different phases, and it's explained in the UDO how they'll start. So there are some districts that will automatically translate with the adoption of the UDO. Then there'll be some alignments, and then it'll be several different phases. And I'm sure they'll group them by districts or areas. I'm not sure what the methodology is, but it's different phases. And that will happen. We'll start the community area planning process definitely after the UDO is in effect, because you need to have the zoning in place to be able to start talking about adjusting things, or we'll be where we are now. Talking about the land use and still hadn't gotten the tool in place. So
Right.
what that timeline looks like, John, we're not for certain. Next year is a little tricky because of elections in April.
Yeah.
And you know,
I've
council
heard.
they don't like to do anything, make a whole lot of decisions during election time. And then they take office in May. If we get a new council, then a lot of things will have to be kind of explained again.
Right.
If we
Right.
don't, then we'll just keep trucking. So that's why I say the timeline, we have a tentative schedule, but it's up in the air depending on the elections.
Okay. So that means, since Gretchen has this one up in front of us, everything in purple, let's say this is fine and it becomes a policy map, it's all purple. But the translation of some of those purple pieces of property might not be neighborhood center, because the translation document makes them something else. And then as part of the community, for instance, O1, B1 or whatever becomes neighborhood center. Correct. There's a translation sheet. It's automatic.
They have that in the UDO, what districts go to what. How that happens, I'm not sure. And they might not have spelled it out either, what the direct translation districts are. They might not have gotten that far either.
But something that doesn't direct translate to purple, we would have a discussion as part of that community small area plan, I presume, to probably rezone it to be purple, or decide that actually it wasn't.
I can't promise.
You don't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that right now.
Okay.
That's like 15, 20 steps down the street.
I was trying to get there here.
I mean, between now, I don't even know if there's a push for new districts. If these, I don't know. We don't know where we're going to end up.
Okay.
But these conversations help inform that direction.
I would say my overriding comment is that the policy map as a broad document is really taking the comprehensive plan and getting it on the ground. But we've got to get the UDO people involved as well, so that the regulations actually produce the vision that we're seeing here. So that's where we all have to work together on this.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Well, thank you. And if does anyone else have any other questions? I just want to acknowledge our planning chair, Kiva Samuel, who's also on the line. So welcome.
Oh, hey, Kiva.
We didn't get a chance to say hi.
Hello, everybody. I've been listening intently, especially to former chair.
Thank you.
Well, there are no other questions, and if there's nothing else from staff, we can probably end here. We did go a little bit over, but not by much. So again, thank you guys so much for being here, and we look forward to any future engagement activities and events that we have, and seeing you there.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Alicia.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Good night.